Most men think control in a relationship looks obvious. They imagine yelling, threats, manipulation, or emotional blackmail. But the real control, the kind that actually decides who chases, who gives, who apologizes, who puts in more effort, is almost never loud. It's quiet. It's subtle. And it's so smooth that most men don't even realize it's happening until they're already doing everything she wants, while believing it was their idea all along. You'll notice it not in what she says, but in what she withholds. Not in the fights, but in the silences. Not in the arguments, but in the shifts of energy. When she suddenly becomes distant, cold, busy, or not in the mood. Because control isn't always about force. It's about influence, and women are masters at influencing without appearing responsible for anything. She doesn't have to demand loyalty, she just makes you earn her attention. She doesn't have to beg for effort, she just pulls back a little, and suddenly you're fighting to impress her again. She doesn't have to argue to win. She simply changes her tone, her body language, her emotional availability, and watches you adjust yourself like a remote-controlled device. And here's the dangerous part. Men think they're choosing their actions. Texting more, apologizing first, arguing less, proving their love, but in reality, they're reacting to invisible buttons she already knows how to press. What she rewards, you repeat. What she ignores, you stop doing. That's not love. That's conditioning. This video isn't about hating women. It's about waking up men. Because the moment you understand how soft power works, emotional control, attention control, insecurity triggers, validation withdrawal, you stop being manipulated by it. You no longer become a puppet of her moods, her silences, or her approval. So buckle up. We're not talking about the obvious tactics. We're talking about the psychological ones, the kind that most men can't see, but every woman knows she has. Let's expose the 7 hidden ways women control relationships, and more importantly, how to take your power back. Part 1. The power of emotional availability. If you really want to understand the first hidden way women control a relationship, you have to forget the surface-level idea of manipulation and look at something far more subtle: emotional availability. Because a woman doesn't need to shout, threaten, or argue to control a man. All she has to do is shift her emotions, and the man will automatically adjust his behavior without even realizing why he's doing it. Here's the truth most men never realize. A woman's emotions are not just feelings. They are levers. When she's warm, affectionate, praising, and loving, it motivates you. When she's cold, distant, silent, or irritated, it controls you. That's not accidental. That's conditioning. How it starts: in the beginning, she gives you everything: attention, sweetness, excitement, emotional energy. She replies fast, laughs at everything, compliments you, and makes you feel chosen. That phase isn't just love, it's the setup, because once a man experiences that level of emotional reward, his brain marks it as the standard. Now, whether he admits it or not, he doesn't just want her, he wants that feeling back. So what does she do next? She pulls back. Not fully, not aggressively, just enough to make you notice the change. Suddenly, the girl who used to send 3-paragraph good morning texts now replies, GM. The girl who used to stay up till 2 a.m. talking to you now says, I'm tired. The girl who used to want to see you every weekend now says, let's see, I'm not sure yet. And boom, just like that, you're chasing. Not because she demanded it, but because she withdrew the emotional energy your brain got addicted to. Why most men don't see it? Because they confuse love with emotional access. They think, she must be upset. I need to fix it. Maybe I said something wrong. I should try harder, be nicer, be more romantic. And there it is. The control button is activated. She doesn't have to lecture you. She doesn't have to ask for effort. She doesn't have to say, do better. She simply changes how emotionally available she is, and you will try harder on your own. That's not coincidence. That's psychological leverage. Why emotional availability is a power tool? Because men don't crave love the way women do. Women crave security. Men crave emotional stability. When a woman becomes emotionally unpredictable, warm one day, distant the next, the man becomes emotionally dependent. He's constantly unsure, constantly wondering, constantly thinking, what changed? Did I do something wrong? How do I get her back to the version of her I fell for? Once a man is in emotional pursuit mode, she doesn't need to force anything ever again. He will apologize first, even when he wasn't wrong, spend more money to make her happy again, prioritize her above friends, goals, and self-respect, walk on eggshells to avoid triggering her withdrawal, try to earn her love instead of expecting balance. That's control without a single rule, threat, or argument. The psychological mechanism behind it. This is called intermittent reinforcement, the same method used in slot machines and addictive apps. If the reward was always there, you'd get comfortable and stop chasing. If it was never there, you'd give up and walk away. But when it's sometimes there and sometimes not, your brain gets obsessed. That's why you don't leave. That's why you work harder. That's why she doesn't have to ask for control. She already has it, because your brain is no longer operating on logic. It's operating on uncertainty, validation hunger, and emotional craving. How women learn this without being taught. No one teaches women this in school. No mother says, withdraw affection to control a man. They learn it indirectly through childhood emotional patterns, past relationships, observing other women, knowing which behaviors get the biggest reactions, seeing which men chase more and which men walk away. By the time a woman is 18 to 22, she already subconsciously understands something most men take decades to realize. My emotions are power. I don't need to control a man with force. I can control him with access. The trap. Most men fall into. Men think effort is the solution. If I just do more, she'll love me again. If I fix myself, she'll treat me better. If I make her happy, she'll stop being distant. But the truth is, you're being trained. You're not fixing a relationship problem. You're responding to a control pattern. You think winning her back emotionally is progress. She sees it as proof the button is working. Every time you panic at her emotional withdrawal, you teach her she can use it again. What a high-value man does instead, he does not dance for emotional crumbs. He does not chase after silence. He does not try to convince someone to treat him right. He notices the shift, observes it, and doesn't react. No long paragraphs, no panic chasing, no "did I do something wrong?" speeches, no emotional begging, because the moment she sees you don't bend to emotional changes, the control breaks. Women don't stop using strategies that work. They stop using strategies that fail to control you, and that's the moment the relationship becomes balanced, not controlled. The summary of part 1. Women don't control men by force. They control men by emotionally shifting their presence. Warmth becomes a reward, distance becomes punishment, and your reactions become the leash. But once you stop responding to emotional fluctuations like a trained dog, she is forced to treat you with respect instead of strategy. Part 2. The validation trap. How women control men through approval and disapproval. If part 1 showed you how women use emotional availability as leverage, part 2 will show you something even more invisible, a form of control so subtle that men confuse it with love, chemistry, or relationship effort. It's called validation control, and it's one of the strongest ways women influence a man's behavior without ever raising their voice, making a demand, or giving a direct order. Because once a woman becomes the source of your validation, she automatically becomes the judge of your worth. Here's how it works. In the beginning, she makes you feel exceptional. She compliments your intelligence. She praises your effort. She loves your personality. She says things like, "I've never met a guy like you. You're different from other men. I feel safe with you." And that's how it starts. Not with manipulation, not with negativity, but with reward. Because the moment you start liking her praise, your brain tags it as emotional currency. You don't just like her. You like the version of yourself that exists in her eyes. That's when you become vulnerable. Because now you are not just trying to be happy in the relationship. You're trying to maintain the identity she approves of. Then the shift happens. That same woman who once hyped you up, she starts giving less praise, less excitement, less approval. Now suddenly, she's not impressed by what once impressed her. She stops complimenting you. She reacts less to your accomplishments. She becomes silent instead of supportive. And silence is not neutral. Silence becomes judgment. Now the man starts thinking, did I lose my value? Am I not good enough anymore? Maybe I need to do more. And boom, the trap is triggered. What she once rewarded freely, she now makes you earn. Why this is more powerful than arguing or nagging? Because men are reward-driven. We don't chase love, we chase approval. If a woman flat out insults you, you might fight back. If she argues or complains, you may defend yourself. But when she withdraws approval, she doesn't look like the enemy. She looks disappointed, and nothing controls a man faster than, "You're not who I thought you were. I expected better. You've changed." Men don't try to win arguments, they try to win validation. The real psychology, she becomes the mirror. When she praises you, you feel like a king. When she disapproves, you feel like a failure. Not because she forced that identity on you, but because you handed her the authority to define your value. That's when she doesn't need to order you anymore. You voluntarily adjust your behavior to avoid losing her approval. You speak softer, apologize faster, spend more money, suppress your wants, agree just to keep peace, stop doing things that upset her. Change your personality to be good enough again. That's not love. That's identity-level control. And once a woman controls how you see yourself, she controls everything else. How women use this without realizing it. Not all women do this consciously. Many do it instinctively because of how society rewards female approval power. They learn early that men try harder when they feel not enough. Men impress harder when approval is limited. Men chase more when validation becomes unpredictable. And here's the trick. They don't need to insult you to make you feel insecure. All they need is silence plus disappointment. The subtle forms of validation control. She suddenly stops being impressed by your accomplishments. She compares you to other men. He does this for his girl. She makes you earn compliments you once received freely. She gives more attention to what you did wrong than what you did right. She praises you only when it benefits her. She gives affection as a reward, not as love. She disapproves of behaviors that don't serve her agenda. This turns a man from confident to performer. He's no longer acting from strength. He's acting from fear of disapproval. What happens to men stuck in the validation trap? They lose their masculinity, not physically, psychologically, because they stop making decisions from who they are and start making decisions based on how she reacts. They become overthinkers, pleasers, approval, chasers, emotionally dependent, afraid to say no, afraid to lose her, afraid to disappoint her. They're not in love, they're in emotional obedience. And the worst part? Many men think this is being a good boyfriend. How high-value men break. This, a man with self-respect, says, "Your approval is nice, but it will never define me." He doesn't get shaken by disapproval. He doesn't chase compliments. He doesn't compete for validation. He doesn't reward emotional punishment with more effort. He knows, if I must earn your respect constantly, then you don't respect me. If I must prove I'm worthy, then you don't deserve me. A high-value man is not addicted to validation. He already validates himself. That's why manipulation fails on him. There are no buttons to push if he has nothing to prove. Summary of Part 2. Women don't need to dominate a man to control him. They just need to become the gatekeeper of his self-worth. If her approval lifts you, her disapproval can destroy you. That's why the strongest men are the ones who don't need applause to stand tall, not even from the woman they love. Part 3. The attention economy. How women use attention as currency to control men. If Part 1 was about emotional availability and Part 2 exposed the validation trap, Part 3 reveals something even more dangerous. The attention economy, where a woman's most powerful weapon isn't love, sex, or loyalty. It's her attention. Because in the modern world, attention is the new currency, and whoever controls the supply controls the relationship. Men chase love, women trade attention, and once you understand how this works, you'll see why some women can run an entire relationship without raising their voice or making a single demand. Here's the hidden reality. A woman doesn't need to control a man directly. She just needs to control how much attention he gets and when. Give it high, he feels valued. Pull it away, he feels anxious. Give it randomly, he becomes addicted. That cycle is not emotional randomness. That is attention distribution strategy. Men think they're falling in love, but really, they're chasing lost attention like gamblers chasing a winning streak. How the attention system is set up. Step 1. She gives you full attention in the beginning. Fast replies, compliments, interest, time, energy, phone calls, late-night talks. Step 2. You get used to it. Your brain associates her with reward, excitement, and emotional dopamine. Step 3. She gradually reduces the attention flow. Now messages slow down, tone changes, interest drops, or she's suddenly busy. Step 4. Your brain goes into attention withdrawal, and you start chasing not the woman, but the version of her who paid attention to you. You're not chasing love. You're chasing access. And when you chase access, she doesn't need control. She already has it. Why attention is more powerful than love. Love makes you feel connected. Attention makes you feel validated, chosen, and secure. When a woman gives you attention, you feel good about yourself. You feel wanted. You feel confident. You feel valued. But when she denies attention, you feel insecure. You question yourself. You overthink. You get emotionally unstable. You try to fix yourself to get it back. That's not romance. That's behavioral conditioning. Here's the master trick. Most men don't see women don't have to punish you. They just stop rewarding you. They don't have to say, do this for me. They just let their attention disappear until you do it voluntarily. Example, she doesn't say, buy me something. She just acts distant until you do. She doesn't say, give me more effort. She just becomes cold until you increase effort. She doesn't say, I'm disappointed in you. She just stops reacting to you at all. And now you're not reacting to what she wants. You're reacting to the loss of attention. That's psychological control at its finest. Most men don't realize they're not in a relationship. They're in a competition. A competition for what? Her time, her energy, her attention, her emotional response, her approval. She becomes the prize, you become the performer, and the relationship becomes the stage. You don't act based on what you value, you act based on what will get her attention back. You change your behavior, change your tone. Remove things she doesn't like. Try to be the man she wants instead of the man you are. That's not compatibility, that's compliance. Attention is the new power because men are starving for it. In 2024, most men don't get compliments, don't get real admiration, don't get emotional care, don't get consistent attention, don't get appreciation. So when a woman gives a man full attention, even briefly, it feels special, rare, addictive. That's why men chase women who ignore them. Men obsess over women who pull back. Men lose interest in women who are always available. Men panic when attention drops. Men mistake. Attention shifts for relationship problems. It's not a problem. It's a control mechanism. The 3 phases of attention control 1. Flooding phase. Full attention, emotional bonding, constant availability. Purpose. Hook the man. 2. Reduction phase. Less response, less interest, tone shift. Purpose. Create insecurity plus dependency. 3. Conditional attention phase. She gives attention only when it benefits her. Purpose. Control through reward access. Now, your actions equals attempt to unlock her attention again. That's not love. That's a loyalty program system. How high-value men break out. He doesn't panic when attention drops because he was never addicted to her attention. He already has self-sourced attention, self-worth, self-validation. He doesn't think, what did I do wrong? He thinks, if attention is being used to control me, that's not love. And then the power shifts. Attention doesn't control a man who has a life, has confidence, has options, has purpose, has self-respect. You can't starve a man who's already full. Summary of Part 3. Women don't need force to control men. All they need is strategic attention flow. Give attention. He feels rewarded. Remove attention. He feels anxious. Give it randomly. He becomes addicted. That is not chaos. That is control disguised as emotional rhythm. And the moment you stop needing attention to feel secure, you become uncontrollable. Part 4. The Sacrifice Trap. How women make men give up power in the name of love. If Part 1 was about emotional shifts, Part 2 was about validation control. Part 3 exposed the power of attention. Then Part 4 reveals one of the most dangerous forms of control women use, not by force, not by argument, not by emotional withdrawal, but by convincing you that sacrifice equals love. Here's the silent rule. Most men never notice. In the beginning, women don't demand sacrifice. They praise it. They say things like, "You're so different. You're so loyal. I love how committed you are. You make me feel safe." And because men are built to prove love through action, the man thinks, if I sacrifice more, she will love me more. But that's the trap. Because sacrifice doesn't always bring love. Sometimes it removes your power. How the sacrifice trap works. It doesn't start with a big request. It starts with something small and reasonable. Can you stop talking to that female friend? It makes me uncomfortable. Do you really need to go out with your boys every weekend? Why do you always choose work over us? If you truly cared, you'd prioritize me. And the man thinks, she just wants to feel secure. I should do this. It's no big deal. So he gives in. Not because he's weak, but because he thinks sacrifice equals love. And once she sees he will sacrifice, the requests grow. What he sacrifices over time, his friends, his hobbies, his freedom, his priorities, his personality, his boundaries, his goals, his identity, until one day he looks in the mirror and realizes he's no longer himself. He's a customized version built to keep her happy. The hidden truth. Most men learn. Too late. Women don't fall in love with a man who gives everything up for them. They fall in love with a man who doesn't lose himself while loving them. The moment you give up your life, passion, and individuality, she doesn't say, "Wow, what a man." She starts thinking, "Where did the man I fell for go?" Because she didn't fall in love with a servant. She fell in love with a man with direction, purpose, identity, and standards. She wanted to join his life, not replace it. How the sacrifice trap becomes control. Once she sees you're willing to sacrifice to keep her happy, she doesn't need to force anything anymore. All she needs to do is look disappointed, go silent, make you feel guilty, say, "I thought I meant more to you," compare you to other men who do more for their girl. And now you're not thinking logically. You're thinking, "I don't want to lose her, so I should give up this too." Now every sacrifice becomes a proof of love, and every boundary you keep becomes a sign of selfishness. That's control disguised as caring. The 3 levels of the sacrifice trap. Level 1, time sacrifice. You give her more time, she gets used to it. Now she expects it. Level 2, social sacrifice. You stop talking to people, stop hanging out, stop making her insecure. Level 3, identity sacrifice. You stop doing what's natural to you just to maintain peace. At level 3, you're not her partner anymore. You're her obedient version of you. The worst part? You think you're doing it for love. Men say things like, "I changed for her. I gave up everything to make her happy. I proved my loyalty. I made sacrifices." But here's the punchline. A woman never respects a man who sacrifices himself to keep her. She respects a man who keeps himself and still chooses her. Love is not proven by losing yourself. Love is proven by staying yourself. Why some women use the sacrifice trap. Not all women do this maliciously. Some do it because they feel insecure. They had past trauma. They fear losing control. They don't trust naturally. They confuse sacrifice with security. Others use it consciously because they've learned that a man in guilt and sacrifice mode is easier to control. But whether it's intentional or not, the effect is the same. She gains more control, you lose more identity. How high-value men break the sacrifice trap. A strong man has a simple rule: I will adjust for love, but I will not erase myself for love. He doesn't say yes to everything. He doesn't abandon his friends or purpose. He doesn't give up his passions to prove loyalty. He doesn't apologize for having a life outside the relationship. He knows compromise is healthy. Sacrifice is sometimes necessary, but self-deletion is not love. It's surrender. He doesn't let guilt manipulate him. He doesn't negotiate his identity. He doesn't reward control behavior. Because a real man knows you can love a woman deeply without giving her the keys to your self-respect. Summary of Part 4. Women don't always control men by force. Sometimes they control men by making them believe love requires sacrifice, until the man gives up everything that made him attractive in the first place. First, she praises your sacrifice. Then she expects it. Then she uses guilt to demand more. Then she loses respect for the man who gave up everything love should add to your life, not subtract you from it. Part 5. The Insecurity Lever. How women use the fear of losing them to control your behavior. If Part 4 revealed how sacrifice becomes silent control, Part 5 exposes something even more powerful: the insecurity lever. Because a woman doesn't need to argue, blame, or threaten to control a man. She only needs to make him fear losing her. And once that fear is inside him, even a little, she doesn't need force. His insecurity will control him for her. Here's the psychological switch most men never see. Coming in the beginning, she makes you feel like you can't lose her. She shows effort. She makes you feel chosen. She compliments you. She emotionally invests. She gives you consistency. Then one day that energy shifts, not fully, just enough for you to notice. Suddenly, she's not as excited to see you. She replies slower. She starts comparing you to other guys. She becomes confused about her feelings. She brings up, what if this doesn't work? She says things like, maybe you deserve someone else. She suddenly gets more attention from other men and lets you know. That's not drama. That's not mood swing. That is a calculated shift in emotional power. She is triggering the first seed of insecurity in your mind. What if she leaves? What if I'm not enough anymore? What if someone else replaces me? What if she's losing interest? And once those questions enter your head, she no longer has to control you. Your fear will. Why? This is the most effective form of control. Because it turns a confident man into a reactive man. Men don't panic when a woman is mad. They panic when a woman is emotionally fading. Anger is loud. Distance is deadly. You can argue with anger. You can't argue with, I don't know how I feel anymore. That sentence destroys men more than any insult. Because what do men do when they feel they might lose someone? They soften. They chase. They apologize for things they didn't do. They tolerate behavior they used to reject. They offer more effort, gifts, reassurance, attention. They start proving themselves instead of respecting themselves. That's not love. That's survival mode. How women trigger the insecurity lever without ever admitting it. They don't say, I want control. They say things like, any girl would be lucky to have you. Suddenly detached tone. I just don't feel the same lately. I need space to think. I'm not sure this is working. You've changed. I don't feel desired anymore. Why don't you try harder like before? And men react exactly how she needs them to. He becomes afraid to upset her. He becomes emotional instead of masculine. He loses confidence and starts overthinking. He turns into a pleaser instead of a leader. He starts chasing a woman who used to chase him. She doesn't have to punish him. His fear of losing her does it for her. The 3 ways women activate the insecurity lever. 1. Emotional distance. Not angry, not rude, just colder. Men panic the fastest when warmth disappears. 2. Social threat. She suddenly posts more selfies, talks about other guys, or gets male attention publicly. 3. Uncertainty language. IDK anymore. Things feel different. Maybe we rushed. These aren't answers. They're emotional grenades. Why men fall for this every time? Because men are biologically wired to protect what they fear losing. If a woman is fully his, he relaxes. If a woman starts slipping away, his body goes into fight mode, heart rate up, thoughts racing, masculinity replaced by desperation. The greatest obedience comes not from force, but from fear of loss. What happens to a man who falls for the insecurity lever? He starts negotiating his masculinity. I'll change, just don't leave. I'll stop doing that. I'll spend more time with you. Tell me what you want me to do. I'll fix myself. He doesn't realize. He's no longer trying to improve the relationship. He's trying to avoid abandonment. And that is the moment he loses power, not because she took it, but because he gave it up to keep her. The harsh truth. A woman will never respect a man who is afraid of losing her. She may enjoy the control. She may enjoy the effort. She may enjoy the power shift. But respect? Gone. Because a woman can love a man she fears losing. She cannot love a man who fears losing her. How high-value men respond to insecurity games. He doesn't chase emotional distance. He doesn't beg for clarity. He doesn't panic at uncertainty. He doesn't prove himself to someone testing him. He simply observes the shift and says one of the most powerful sentences a man can say: if you're unsure, take all the time you need. I'm not afraid to lose someone who's unsure about me. And just like that, the power returns, because the insecurity lever only works on a man whose self-worth depends on her staying. A man who is willing to walk away cannot be controlled. Summary of Part 5. Women don't always control men by force, argument, or manipulation. Sometimes they simply activate his fear of losing her and let his insecurity do the rest. Emotional distance, comparison, uncertainty statements, male attention stimulation, sudden shift in energy, and the man who was once confident becomes obedient, overinvested, and afraid. But once a man realizes this truth, the only real power a woman has over you is the power you give her by fearing her absence. Part 6, the guilt switch, how women use blame to control a man's mind, actions, and identity. If Part 5 exposed how women use fear of loss to control men, then Part 6 is about an even deeper weapon, one that doesn't just control what you do, but how you feel about yourself. It's called the guilt switch, and if a woman learns how to flip it, a man will do anything, not because she forced him, but because he feels like the bad guy if he doesn't. The core principle of the guilt switch. Guilt makes a man self-police his behavior. Unlike anger, unlike punishment, unlike arguments, guilt is internal. Guilt makes a man control himself. Guilt makes a man surrender power voluntarily. A woman doesn't need to raise her voice, leave, threaten, or even argue. All she needs is one sentence that attacks his identity. I didn't expect this from you. You've changed. If you really loved me, you wouldn't do that. You always hurt me without realizing it. I guess I was wrong about you. You never think about how I feel. These are not statements. These are guilt triggers. And once they activate, the man instantly goes into apology mode, fix-it mode, pleaser mode, self-blame mode, prove I'm a good man mode. And that's when she has him, not physically, not emotionally, mentally. Why guilt is more powerful than anger. Anger says, you're wrong. Guilt says, you're not good enough. Anger attacks an action. Guilt attacks identity. A man can defend himself from anger, but guilt makes him attack himself. And that's the genius of the guilt switch. It doesn't force a man to change. It convinces him that changing is his fault and his responsibility. How women use guilt without looking manipulative. She doesn't scream. She doesn't accuse directly. She plays the hurt victim role. Examples: I guess I don't matter anymore. You never make time for me like before. I wish I was important enough to prioritize. It's fine. I'm used to being last in people's lives. You don't even notice how much I do for you. Now she doesn't look controlling. She looks wounded, and that forces you to become the fixer. You weren't wrong. You were made to feel wrong. And when a man feels guilty, he doesn't resist. He obeys. The 3 types of guilt traps. Women use 1. Emotional guilt. You're making me feel unloved. You don't care about my feelings. 2. Effort. Guilt. I do everything for you, but you can't do one thing for me. 3. Character guilt. Wow, I didn't know you were this kind of person. That last one, that one destroys men the fastest. Because now it's not about the mistake, it's about who he is. Why guilt switches. Work so well on men. Because most men have 3 built-in psychological buttons. 1, protector instinct. He doesn't want to be the source of pain. 2, pride in being a good man. He values being righteous and loyal. 3, fear of being seen as selfish or uncaring. He wants to be respected. When a woman uses guilt, she attacks all 3 at once. She doesn't have to control your actions. She controls your self-image, which controls your actions automatically. Signs you're under the guilt switch. Right now, you catch yourself saying things like, I don't know why she's upset, but it must be my fault. Maybe I really need to change more. I'm sorry, I'll fix it, without knowing exactly what was wrong. She gives so much, I should do more. I just don't want to hurt her again. Here's the truth, you're not in love, you're in emotional debt. The dark side of guilt control. The more you accept guilt that isn't real, the more you lose your ability to trust yourself. You start doubting your decisions. You second-guess your words. You walk on eggshells. You start filtering your personality. You stop having boundaries. You're not being a good man. You're being a controlled man. And the worst part? She thinks it's normal, because you allow it. How high-value men break the guilt switch. He does 3 things. 1. He separates guilt from responsibility. He asks, am I truly wrong, or am I being emotionally manipulated? 2nd, he refuses identity attacks. A real man says, don't question my character just because you didn't get your way. 3, he owns mistakes, but doesn't accept blame inflation. If he's wrong, he apologizes once, not 12 times, not for 7 days, not with gifts, begging, or personality surrender. He does not let a woman rewrite reality just to make him feel guilty, because a high-value man knows, if guilt is the only way you influence me, then you don't respect me. You're manipulating me. Summary of Part 6. Women don't always control men through force, threats, or distance. Sometimes they control men through guilt-based identity attacks. Not, you did something bad, but you are someone bad. Once a man internalizes guilt, he stops being a partner and becomes a self-punishing servant. But once a man recognizes the guilt switch, he no longer asks, how can I fix this? He asks, is this even mine to fix? And that's the moment he becomes untouchable. Part 7, the feminine freeze. How women use silence, distance, and emotional shutdown to regain power. We've covered emotional shifts, validation traps, attention control, sacrifice manipulation, insecurity triggers, and guilt-based power. Now it's time for the final and most silent weapon of all.